Well, the very beginning was in Paris, and it came, in fact, through, one more time, poetry, right? Because I found an old, very small catalogue from a gallery called Le Point Cardinal, and these little pages, these few pages had been published in, I think, the early 60s, you know, and there were two texts with some images, but images black and white, you know, which for Tantra paintings, it's well, you lose a lot, you know, without the color. But anyway, there was a text by Octavio Paz, the Mexican, Nobel Prize, and the second one, the other one, was by Henri Michaud. So in fact, I bought this little stuff because of the text, you know, because I wanted to read them, to get them to write. And it was the first meeting.
You actually had to come back to India 3 times before you had a real meeting with the painting.
Well, I couldn't say for the number of times, you know, but well, it was sometimes.
But each time you had an accident, right?
And after that, you know, one day, after the meeting with André Padoux, in fact, I decided to do a last, how could I say, to try again for a last time, you know, because I didn't want to spend my life trying to find things, you know, every year or not so far, and for nothing, you know. It was frustrating, really. And I went to India, and I had a stupid big accident in a bus, you know, which just crashed on a trunk, you know, and it was horrible. Everybody died around me, you know. Oh, it was bad. So I had to come back to France in a very bad state after some days, just few days, you know, in India, because it happened on the road between New Delhi and Jaipur, and it was the very, very beginning of the voyage, you know. So and it was long, you know, to recover, and 2 years later, well, it's the old story, you know, when you fall from your horse, you have to ride again as soon as you can, you know. So I went back to India. I washed my hand in the sand, and in fact he just read the sand after, you know, this gesture, and he told me that it was okay. I had, you know, paid my tribute to the goddess, because, you know, the goddess in Tantra is in fact merely a goddess, Kali, and that, well, I could go ahead under certain conditions, you know. I had to be careful.
Was he specific with what you had to be careful with, or?
Yes. First, I had to. I could collect pieces. I could show them in the Western world. I could even sell them, for example, because he knew what was my life, with how do you want to earn your life being a poet, This is a very funny situation. So.
But I think also it's interesting that you yourself, you don't have this meditative praxis. You actually...
No, myself, I was just totally passionated and touched by the beauty and this sensation of power coming from these small pieces, I was mad about that. Going from a family to tantric family, from a family to another one, and to ask what does that mean, and after you just collect the answers, and when you have, for example, a good dozen of answers which are very similar, you can say and consider that roughly the meaning of this piece is what you have found, season after season, right?
Yeah. So, for example, with this one...
Well, this one, it is, in fact, the gaze of energy, with two eyes, of course, and the spiral quoting energy, very usually, always. And you see there how they look.
Yeah, it's like two eyes.
And how the color is so important in this strange fringe art. Well, this is the birth of speech, You have a sky of consciousness, and this kind of tit is in fact the arrival on the scene of speech, because speech in Tantrism is very important. Well, so many people, when you say Tantrism, they think about, spiritual sexuality or things like that, which is existing, yes, but it's a very, very, very small part of the complete discipline, and the complete discipline has to do with has a lot to do with speech, especially. All the mantras and even, for example, this chapter of the discipline, which is this abstract painting from Rajasthan, this is also a very small part of this big body of thought, which is Tantrism. And so they are first, dedicated to, in the families, Tantrika, to meditation every day, and even if you're a kid, they begin quite early.
And how in practicality does it work? They put it on the wall?
Well, in all, even if it's not in a Tantrika family, in the family, Hinduist family in India, they have a little, special corner in the house where they do their puja, their rite every day, and so it is in this kind of place that they work, they meditate, they throw milk and things, and
And then how is it when they don't actually throw things?
Oh yes, this is a funny story. I think I told you once. Yes.
Yeah, you told me.
And it is really beautiful, because of course doing this, there would very often they could spoil totally the colors, the painting. So they have found a tricky solution to this small problem, which was not to destroy too rapidly, the painting. So in fact they use a mirror, and they, with the mirror, they can see the piece, the painting, in the mirror, and they can, throw all they want, alcohol, milk, of course, and flowers, and and sweets, and without any danger for the piece itself. It is just the image of the piece which is, attacked. Yeah, I love this story. And this is, this is just the very classical bindu that you can find on the forehead of ladies, and which is the first manifestation of the universe, which is just a drop of, in fact, a drop of sound, The first thing which came was a sound. And the thing which was very interesting and touching also was that, for example, in this piece, of course you think immediately of modern or contemporary Western pieces, like Agnes Martin or Robert Ryman, or and this piece is called the Four Directions, north, south, and west, east, and it is softening to suddenly discover that coming from the 17th century in India, you have patterns, schemes, which have been refound recently in the 20th century, without knowing, of course, that it was existing before in Rajasthan, for example, which is very funny because there are other pieces like this one, where you find monochromes, which is a classical in in our Western world now, and there is another one, we will see it later, but who is in fact a sort of Malevich, and so it's.
But do you think at some point, Agnes Martin must have some point have seen these ones?
I don't think so.
No?
No. I don't think so.
It's not everyone who can do these paintings. It's like you have to be in some way special. You are. Is it everyone? It's certain families or.
Well, in the Tantra families, of course, there is a quite precise education of the kids. They learn that this piece and that piece, and and they learn to meditate the piece, and they learn to produce it, and to also to be in the right state of consciousness for meditating or painting themselves, and of course they have their favorites, so somebody is going to perhaps to paint during his life just 2 or 3 or 4 schemes, patterns, and it depends, or it's a very free community, so.
But then still it's so striking that they never put their names on them.
No, it's forbidden, yes, really. And another thing, which is an enormous detail, it is that, especially in India, where, it's not the normal way of doing in classical Hinduist family. As many, women are doing these also, and in the very same way than men,
Okay.
Men, of course, are doing it, but the very same way women are painting also. Well, this is a Shiva Linga. Shiva is, of course, the divine lover of Kali, and
so it's the male.
that's very, very powerful, because it is the strength, the energy, the pure energy of Shiva,
Which is the male, right?
Yes,
the male energy.
Yes. And with coming from his body, in fact, and invading the space, and really is in fire, definitely. But it can be in any situation, because there are, for example, some Shiva Linga. Usually at the entry of the temples in India, you always have one or several Shiva Lingas in stone, right? And there are part of India north, of course, where you can find Shivalinga in ice, So even, the strength of them, their energy can, in fire really, can exist in under the form of ice, which is difficult to believe, yeah. Like even ice can have its fire, yeah. Its inner fire. Why not?
Wow. So would you say that this type of praxis, it still exists now in Rajasthan on the same level as it did back in when it started, or in the 1800s, or?
Well, really, frankly, I think so, yes. Especially because it is, in fact, compared with the number of people who are living in Rajasthan, for example, I'm sure that the percentage of the Tantrika must be extraordinarily small, So it's a bit like it never really changed, I think so.
How many families?
Well,
is it possible to, is it in a region of Rajasthan?
No, everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yes.
Do they know
in the country, in the cities.
Do they know each other?
No, I know something like 20, 30 families.
Oh, okay.
You have, there you have the little the little wings, and it's so funny. And even this one has also a mouth, These two chaps are too much, really. And it at the end it makes so beautiful pieces, Wow. And so living, Because if they don't put the mirrors, they are going to totally spoil the thing, with some dirty things, on paper, and like pastries, or
So do you, in the houses you have seen the paintings, do they always have a mirror?
Not always, and some pieces are in fact destroyed like that, and they are not obliged to throw, always a bit spoiling things, like especially on colors like this. If you put some milk, for example, I mean, it's dead, of course. The color is going to, well, it's a mess, really. So, but this mirror coming, it's too much. I mean, it's so beautiful. What a brilliant, very big and small idea, Wow. Yeah. Brilliant. And so simple. It is evident, of course.
Would you say that your poetry, your way of writing, changed after getting to know?
Not really changed, but I think to be interested and to love these little pieces is really good for your mind, you know, because also you said, you know, for it's washing a bit your head, you know, rinsing. And so I think for anything, you know, for in generally for all these sort of subtle arts, a good cure of Rajasthani tantric paintings is recommended. Yes. No, I think it's very good for everybody, but especially if you know, try to touch the invisible. And yeah, I love this one, by the way.
Mm. Me too.
Yeah.